Hello and welcome to SLP Full Disclosure. I am your host, Jennifer Martin, and joining me today is Erin Romanski. So, before I introduce you to Erin and we dive into our topic today, just to kind of get us set up, one of the things I know that I say often is there's so many opportunities as speech pathologists to work in different settings and with different populations. And that's a great piece about our field, but it's also, I think, can be a struggle sometimes because it's hard to know what you want to do and then to get the experience in the different settings of the population. And one thing I'm really noticing is kind of more of a trend that I really love is I feel like when I got out of school, it was you chose what you were going to do, what setting, what population, and that's what you did for your whole career. And I'm now noticing that it seems not only with new grads, but even people that have been in the field are wanting to explore different settings and different populations and to just refresh every so often. I think it helps with burnout and just helps us use different skill sets in our careers. So we are going to be exploring some of that today with the world of skilled nursing facilities. So let me tell you about our guest who is an expert in this area. So Erin grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. She's the only girl with three brothers. And she studied communication sciences and disorders as an undergrad at the University of Cincinnati, and then got her master's in speech pathology from Eastern Michigan University. Between undergrad and graduate school, she obtained her nursing assistant license and worked as an STNA during grad school and prior to getting a job as an SLP. She spent her entire career in skilled nursing facilities across 4 states and so many facilities that she no longer can keep track of how many. She now lives in Minnesota and has found her inner country girl. She likes to garden, can chop wood, enjoys biking, kayaking, camping, and reading. And when she has time, also keeps her puppy out of trouble. So welcome, Erin. We're so happy to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you. I try to keep my puppy out of trouble. He gets more creative every day, I think.
Yes, I know people say like, "Oh, get a puppy, it'll be fine." I'm like, they're like babies. You have to watch them and
hmm
it's
He was
they don't
up
sleep through
at
the night.
3
I
a.m.
mean,
this morning, ready to go.
yeah. Yes. I know. I realized the other day I was having the conversation with my family like, I am obsessed with my dog, but I also realized that I'm like this animal contributes nothing but joy. I'm
Joy.
like, they
Yes,
can do
lots of
nothing but
joy.
joy. So well, I'm so happy to have you and for us to really be able to learn more about working in a skilled nursing facility. And so I always just like to get started because I feel like I learned so much about each person I'm speaking with is tell us a little bit about your professional journey and what led you to where you are now.
It's been a journey. After graduate school, I went back home and I got a full-time job in a skilled nursing facility. I was there for about a year and a half, a year and some change. Decided to become a traveler and haven't stopped. I moved down to Tennessee. I spent 9 months there, and then since then I've practiced in Ohio and Wisconsin, back to Ohio, back to Wisconsin, back to Minnesota. So it's kind of it's and then COVID happened, so that restricted travel and that restricted facilities kind of wanting to take travelers, but also needing travelers. So it's just been a great whirlwind, and I've loved every minute of it. Well, for the
And
most part, I've loved most of the minutes.
yeah, I was gonna say, really? No. I'm always like, if you're like 80% of something, I feel like you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, 80% is probably a good average. That's a passing average, right?
Yes, exactly. So I'm curious too, because the whole travel therapy aspect as well is, what drew you to that? And then, what was it just natural then that it would be traveling to different skilled nursing facilities?
My interest in traveling is twofold. When I first graduated, I thought that would be a great way to see different parts of the country, to meet different people, to experience different opportunities and the way different nursing facilities work. Um, Getting my C's was a process. So finding a place to do my CFY was the hardest barrier, I think. And once I had those, it was pretty a natural progression. Um, like all travel stories, or most of them, I went to Tennessee following a guy. The relationship didn't work out, but I wouldn't have changed a second of it because I've had a great 4 years as a traveler and got to meet some pretty incredible people and experience things that I never would have had I not moved to Tennessee. Um, but initially I'm very much a homebound person. I enjoy home. I love my friends and my family home. So that was a big step for me to move away. And I haven't stopped. The big joke is, where's Erin now? Or what's Erin's address now? Where do I
So
send your Christmas card this year?
I would say that is a good sign that you've established yourself as a traveler because people don't even know where to find you
No.
necessarily. Yeah, and I love that you point that out because I do think that is something that keeps people from taking that step of travel is it's scary. I mean,
Hmm.
it's in that it's there's a lot of unknown and whereas home and the known is very comfortable. But gosh, I mean, I'm sure you've the person you are now versus when you started and had you stayed at home and it just you can't even compare the two.
Oh no, completely different. Completely different.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I'm curious too, just did you do a rotation in graduate school in a skilled nursing facility or what led you to your original interest in that setting?
I didn't actually. My two rotations in graduate school were an acute rehab, inpatient rehab, and then at a high school.
Hmm.
I didn't fall in love with skilled nursing until, well, it was before graduate school actually. As an STNA, as a nursing assistant, I worked as an aide in a skilled nursing facility or an assisted living, and I just fell in love with my residents and working with them and learning about their history and their lives and establishing that relationship as an aide. When I went in as an undergrad, I thought I'd be peds. I'd work with kids and I would be set. And then really my work as an SDNA is what led me to pursue working with adults and working in a skilled rehab.
Yeah, so it sounds like you originally fell in love with the population, which
Hmm.
then led you to that just was a natural setting to
Hmm.
work with that population.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's great. I do feel like it is always I always laugh about it too because when we come out of school and we're like, I will only do blank. And it's like, well, that's that. You've basically sealed the deal that no, that's not what you're going to do because I feel like
Yeah.
it usually veers off into, oh, wow, I thought that's what I wanted to do and I actually don't want to do that. So,
And I think that happens more often than not. I know that a lot of the girls I went to graduate school and guys, um, they came into graduate school thinking, I'm going to do this. I've always wanted to do this. And then you start your coursework and you realize maybe I love neuro or maybe I love voice or it really kind of changes as you learn more about the field because it's so widespread. There's so many things we can do and so many people we can work with that you don't even realize the amount of impact you can have until you start learning about all those different settings.
yes, keep an open mind at
Hmm.
all times
Absolutely.
because you just never know. And so when you started, I mean, you did have the advantage of working as the nursing assistant, so you probably went into it understanding more of the logistics as versus
Hmm.
if you'd never done anything with the skilled nursing. But when you started as a speech pathologist, which is different than a nursing assistant, what areas did you, when you arrived, did you feel the most confident?
I think patient care was probably where I felt most comfortable. I felt comfortable targeting sequencing while helping somebody use the bathroom or while helping somebody get dressed because that's what I had been working on doing for the last 4 years. So rather than having one of my patients verbally sequence the steps or put pictures in order, I'd have them show me the steps. How do you put your shoes on? Where do you find your wheelchair brakes? So that aspect I was very comfortable with from day one.
So being able to kind of just, it sounds like more of the cognitive and
Hmm.
almost just practical skills of our
Hmm.
daily living skills, combining those two.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what did you when you went in as an as a speech pathologist, were there certain areas where you felt like, oh wow, I really do not feel confident in this area. I need to figure this out.
Swallowing. Working
Yeah.
on swallowing rehab and that dysphagia, I was very intimidated by. We have coursework, we work on it in graduate school at the undergrad level. Um, and that area, I still to this day, I think it's good to question what judgments you're making. Are you making the safest judgment, but also are you factoring in quality of life? And everyone's muscles respond differently to rehab. Everyone's cognitive status impacts how they can swallow. But it's one of those things where it can go south pretty quickly if you're not aware of all of those factors. So as a new graduate, I was terrified to change, to upgrade anybody's diet. I did not want that responsibility. I did not want anything to happen because of a decision that I made. Um, but now I feel a little more comfortable doing that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you definitely just hit the nail on the head with that, that it is so intimidating. And when you're standing in front of somebody and it's like, oh gosh, you know, I'm seeing the signs that I've been told are
Mm-hmm.
red flags. This isn't going well. And you're trying to remain calm and composed. And it is, yeah, I think it's it's an area that many are intimidated by. And I love that you know, point out too, just that being able to make those really sound clinical decisions, but also keeping, you know, that quality of life in check too. Because I know I look back at my time working with adults and I'm thinking, gosh, you know, I wish I would have thought about that a little bit more versus like I've got to be we got to keep them safe, 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 safe. But it's
Mm-hmm.
also like, well, where's the balance of quality of life?
Right. And I find that that factors in quite a lot. If you put somebody on the safest diet, um, but then they stop eating or stop drinking, that introduces a whole nother realm of risks,
Yeah.
dehydration, malnutrition.
Mhm.
So finding that balance and finding a compromise where that person sitting in front of you feels like they have dignity and autonomy, but they're also safe is a fine balance to walk some days.
Yes, it is. So now what did you do when you arrived and thought, oh gosh, I really feel this is very intimidating? Do you remember some of the resources or things that you did to help to feel more confident in that area as you were actually able to do the hands-on work? Did you do anything to support that as well?
I relied a lot on my mentors, and I still do. I have um, my first job, she was my training mentor. I still call her with questions. I still will text her and say, this is how I'm feeling. Is there something I'm missing? Should I be looking at this from another angle? But also using the CEU resources that we have. There's conferences, there's webinars, there's videos on ASHA. We have a lot of support as speech pathologists in our CEUs. So using a lot of those resources helped me as well.
Yeah, and I think those are such great reminders. That first one, I can't echo that enough, that rely on, I mean, those that we work alongside, and even if it's an OT or nursing,
Hmm.
I'm just being able to work as a team and never feeling like it's always a good thing to say, I need help. Help me understand this. It's never a bad thing. And so I love that, to use your mentor, because I know that I've been doing this work for far too long. I still have, you know, my colleagues from graduate school and past people that I've worked with that I still call on if I have
Hmm.
questions, because we can't know it all. And it is nice to have that network of people to rely on.
And sometimes I think we're too close to the situation. Sometimes it helps to have
Mhm.
someone else look at it from a different point of view, and take that responsibility component out of it, I suppose would be the way to phrase it, when it's your patient or your resident or whomever you're working with sitting in front of you. Um, Sometimes I feel a lot of pressure to make the right choice or to make the right decision, or um, and so that anxiety or that pressure to make that choice, when you have someone else looking at it, even if they just get the bare bones of the situation, um, allows you to kind of take a step back.
Yeah, that is so true. I always say I'm great at solving other people's problems. And maybe the
Exactly.
same, I mean, even if it was the same when I had, but you're right, there is something to be said for I'm too close to it. I'm not seeing all the pieces. And then somebody else can come in and say, "Oh, yeah, you're absolutely on the right track." Or, "Oh, I would do this." And you're thinking,
Hmm.
"Why didn't I, think of that?" Because so that is such a good reminder. It's just sometimes you're just too close to it. We need somebody
Hmm.
from an outside perspective. So, great reminder. We'll be right back to our interview. We just want to take a brief moment to shout out the company that makes this show possible, Med Travelers. If you are a therapist interested in traveling, visit medtravelers.com to explore the amazing benefits that Med Travelers has to offer. Featuring short and long-term contract opportunities at leading facilities across the country with higher earning potential, W-2 employee status, and a flexible schedule, Med Travelers is your advocate for career success. Visit medtravelers.com to begin your travel adventure today. And now back to the show. So now, for those who have not worked in a skilled nursing facility or maybe have and taken a break, what is, and I'm sure there's no 2 days alike, but just in general, what would a day in the life look like if for an SLP that was in a skilled nursing facility?
The nice thing about being in a skilled nursing facility is your day can be pretty flexible. Your day can be what you need it to be. I'll typically get there for breakfast. So if it's 7:30, 8 o'clock, I'll see someone for breakfast, or I'll do a treatment during breakfast. And then I may go help somebody with those ADLs or that cognitive component of functional sequencing or functional safety. And the day kind of just moves into lunch and then after lunch. So it really is ideally a very kind of flowy day. The nice part of being in a skilled nursing facility is 9 times out of 10, your patients are in the building. They may go out for a doctor's appointment, they may go out with family, but if one patient you're expecting to see isn't there, usually someone else is available. So you just pivot and go to your next patient. So that's a nice component, is you do have that flexibility to work around the schedule of everyone else around you, while maintaining your own schedule. It's not like I need to see this person by 8:30. I need to see this person by 9. I need to see this person by 9:30. You can kind of organically plan your day as it goes, or how your residents, how your patients are feeling that day. I have some that are better in the morning, some that are better in the afternoon, so you just flex it based on their needs.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's quite different if you're used to, let's say, if you're a school-based SLP or outpatient, where okay, every Tuesday at 8 o'clock, I see this student. Every at 9 o'clock, this student. It sounds like there's a lot more where you have a general idea.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I need to see within this day or the next couple of days, but in what order and how that looks is really up to you.
Right.
Yeah. So that's nice. It does allow you to have a lot more flexibility and also really, like you said, look at, okay, this person's great in the morning, this person's not great in the evening, or also even being able to just really work at those during those very practical skill times where it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we know this person's struggling with this. I'm going to come during this activity today so that we can work on that. Yeah.
And it does
And do
make
you,
it nice
oh,
because
sorry,
there's
go ahead.
no, for most facilities that I've worked in, there's no, you have to be here from 7:30 to 3:30. So there are days where if I know my patients aren't going to be up in the morning, I'll come in at 9 o'clock and stay until later. Um, So it's nice to be flexible that way as well. Or vice versa. If I know my patients are up at 7, I get there earlier and then finish my day that way.
Mhm. Yeah, so you're very much kind of in control of how it looks.
Hmm.
As long as the work gets done, that's all that matters.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, do you, just for those that aren't as familiar with the skilled nursing facilities, and myself included, are these patients in most, and I know it differs if there's more long term, there's short term, but are yours residents in most that you've worked at, or are they there for a period of time after a medical event? How has it mostly been set up for you?
I would say maybe 75% of my patients are long-term care residents. They're residents who live there. They're residents either in the assisted living section, in a memory care unit, on the nursing home or nursing facility side, and then maybe 25% are short-term rehab. They had a procedure, they had a medical event that they're still recovering from. The anticipation is that they will be going home or they will be transitioning to less, a lower level of care. So they'll be transitioning to assisted living or to a supportive environment. But that
Gotcha.
has changed a lot with COVID. A lot of people are not coming to skilled rehabs. A lot of people are going from surgery to either outpatient or home health and skipping that inpatient component.
Just for safety reasons, feeling like yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that shifts as things seem to be changing and some of the guidelines are changing. So it'll be interesting to see. And I'm sure there was a lot of fear around that too. If there's those stories where they were in there, they couldn't have family, they couldn't go anywhere.
Hmm.
So I'm sure there's a little bit of where it's
Hmm.
like, no, 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 just I want to go straight home.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so with those that are long term or the residents, is it you, the speech pathologist, that dictates, you know, how many times they're going to be seen per week based on their goals? Is it more of a as needed if, they're doing great and then all of a sudden they've had something come up with feeding that you'll jump in, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both. Typically, when I do an evaluation, something has spurred that need. They had a fall. They um, seem to be having a harder time following sequences. They're coughing more at meals. They are choking on meds. So typically there's an event that spurs a referral to me. I have done maintenance therapy where we have done our primary care 5 times a week, and then you kind of decrease it as they're starting to transition off of therapy. And then I may change the frequency to 3 or 2 times a week as needed. But typically with our long-term care residents, it's it's spurned from a change. It's spurned from they don't seem to be communicating as well, or they had a small TIA, they are recovering from a UTI and demonstrating more confusion, um, and then they'll be referred to me.
And then you have the ability to determine based on your evaluation, this is the frequency.
Hmm.
And oh, wow, if we are there sooner than we planned, then great.
Hmm.
So it's not like an IEP where it's okay, once we decide for the whole school year, this is the way it's going to be. It sounds like there's just a lot more flexibility as far as you being able to determine, okay, we need more, we need less. We thought we
Hmm.
were going to need that. Great. We don't need that anymore.
And I can always do, or as a skilled nursing facility therapist, you can always go in and adjust the plan of care. You can do a recert or an updated plan of care if they make progress very quickly and your short-term goals are no longer appropriate, or they've met their long-term goals but are still progressing. You can alter that plan of care, whether it be 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road. I've had patients who present very differently on the day of evaluation, and then you give them a week to adjust to surroundings if they're on any medications, to give those medications time. And I take a look at my evaluation and I say, none of this is applicable anymore. They're a completely different person. Um, and go in and alter the goals, or go in and say, now that they are more comfortable in their surroundings, they're voicing more goals that they want to work on specifically.
Yeah, I mean, that right there is, I think, great that you have that ability to make those changes because you're right. It's sometimes there's so many factors that go into why we are why we're presenting with certain things on that particular day. So
Mm-hmm.
that is great that there's that flexibility where, oh, we don't need that anymore, or in fact, we need a whole lot more. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and are you ever limited in being able to make those changes based on medical reimbursements, or do you ever feel like you're have to be careful about how you do that based on like, oh gosh, I really want them to have more, but I know that's going to be challenging, or is that ever a factor?
It is a factor. It's a frustrating factor, particularly
Mm-hmm.
with reimbursement. And I think that's one of the harder things about being in a skilled nursing facility
Mm-hmm.
is, depending on the insurance they have, there's a lot of limitations. You get
Yeah.
prior authorization for a week, and if they don't demonstrate enough progress, services are cut. Um, or being an SLP, a lot of insurances and a lot of patient goals have to do with physical mobility. So if they're able to walk community or household distances, if they're able to complete ADLs with some assistance, but their cognitive factor is significantly affected, sometimes that's not, it doesn't feel like it's always taken into account. I've had patients discharge home where I didn't feel comfortable with them being at home, but it was really out of my hands because physically they were able to go home. And that is very challenging.
Yeah, sometimes that's not a good combination when physically they can do all sorts of things, but cognitively
Mm-hmm.
we're not doing as well. It's like I remember sometime I was working in an undergrad. It was a home for 8 women with dementia, Alzheimer's, and sometimes the ones who had the best physical skills were the ones that was like, where are they? But
Mm-hmm.
with the memories, like, oh no, they
Mm-hmm.
could travel farther. So yeah, I hear you that there's some definitely, it doesn't always work out when one skill's really strong and they're doing well and another one's not.
And that's
Yeah.
always a big safety concern for me. I've had so many fears about patients going home and leaving the stove on, or walking out the front door and can't find their way home. And you can't always
Hmm.
guarantee when they go home that they're going to have support and that safety check. It really is out of
Yeah. It's
our
one of those
hands.
where, yeah, you just have to like, okay, I've done the best I can with the situation. Um, and on that note too, is it common in skilled nursing facilities to co-treat? Because like you mentioned, they're looking at physical, they're looking at cognitive, they're looking at ADLs. Are there opportunities to co-treat with PT, OT?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with high level balance. As soon as you introduce a cognitive task, the balance might go down, or vice versa. They're so focused on their balance that they're not able to do that cognitive task. So, for patient safety as well as a true assessment, it's nice to work with the other disciplines. And I find that it truly benefits the patient to have two sets of eyes and to be targeting multiple things, because that's what we do. We're never doing one thing in our day to day. I'm talking on the phone and making dinner and feeding the dog, and I've got the TV on in the background. It's not always a one-on-one setting in an office in a controlled environment. So introducing those distractions, introducing a physical component with PT, with OT, really help simulate daily life.
Yeah, and then everybody knows how to better prepare them if they do end up going home, it's like, okay,
Hmm.
now we know all the areas we need to think about because we don't want to see you back here.
Right.
We don't want you to go and then it's like, oh, great, you're back again. It just,
I always
falls and all sorts of things that can happen. So,
I always tell my patients, you are allowed back to visit anytime, but you are not allowed to be in a bed again. You can
yes,
come and say hello, but
yes,
because
yes. So you can stop
that's
by,
our
we're going to have
goal.
coffee, and then you're going to leave.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Come play bingo and then
So
go.
when, exactly. So now thinking about what you know from working in skilled nursing facilities and also you've worked with a lot of other people in skilled nursing facilities. What would you say are some characteristics that would really help somebody be successful to work in that setting?
Being flexible. Some days don't
Mhm.
go as planned. Some days I get to work and you think, I'm going to have 7 patients on caseload. I know that I'll probably be out the door by 3. It'll be great. And you show up to work and 4 evals came overnight. So then I'm leaving at 8 instead of 3. Or vice versa. You come into work, same 7 patients. One's at a doctor, one's out with family, and one went to the hospital. So then you're left with 4 patients and your day is completely different. Or they have a bath scheduled, so you have to wait for the nurses' aides to finish all of their jobs before you can snag your patient for treatment. Um, and there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of people who need time with that individual. You want them to have time with their family, the other disciplines, nursing, social work. So having that flexibility to say, you can get them now, I'll be back in a half hour. Does that work? Um, is a big factor. And also being willing to work with your teammates because it has to be a team effort. It has to be, you have to wear multiple hats some days. You have to be able to go to OT or to PT and say, how can I help you reinforce what you're working on? What strategies or what aids can I give this patient to make them more successful with their safety, with their walker? Um, and be willing to work interdisciplinary as opposed to, this is my lane, I'm going to stay in this lane. I can't deviate from speech. I can't deviate from cognition. You have to be able to see that patient as a whole person and factor that into your therapy.
Yeah, you brought up so many great, just I think characteristics for any setting, but particularly for that one. And so it sounds like patience, flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you call out something that's really important for somebody that would be considering this is that there is certain ebbs and flows and certain times of year where the census is very high. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of patients that are due to surgeries and winter and illnesses. And then there's times where it's really low. And so knowing that there's going to, if you're somebody that needs, I need the same, I need to know what to expect every day, I need that consistency, then this might be challenging for you versus
Mm-hmm.
if you're, say, like, great, I love the variety of, hey, this month is going to be insane. And then I know that there's going to be months when things slow down a little bit. And you're right, that patience and flexibility, because you're working with humans and you may show up to go get them and there's something going on that you can't get them and do exactly what you planned to do that day. And so being able to just roll with that and not be stressed about that because it
Mm-hmm.
will really, then you'll be stressed a lot.
And you said exactly it. You're working with humans. You're working with adults who have raised families, who've had
Mm.
successful careers, and now they are sometimes reliant on other people to do the most basic functions. And that is an emotional component that isn't always factored in. If I if someone comes into my room at 7 a.m. and said, let's get up for therapy, I would be mad as a hatter. I would be so upset because I'm not a morning person.
Yeah.
I come in my room at 9, come in my room when I've had breakfast. Um, but if someone is saying 7 o'clock is when I want to see them, you may not have the best session because
Yeah.
they're adults. They have to be treated as such. They have to be given um, that choice, and they have to be given the respect of making that choice.
Yeah. And that is a great reminder because even when you said that, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that would be such a helpless feeling at times where you're right. It's like I have had this really productive, successful life, and now I'm reliant on people in a way that I
Mm-hmm.
haven't needed to be. And that must be really hard for some people. And there's probably so many things that it's like, it's just dictated. This is when you're eating, this is when you're doing this. And so allowing them to have a say in things when it's appropriate because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm sure. And you're right. That will be because you hear those stories of, oh, they're so cranky and they say that, they're get out. I don't want there. But I'm sure there is a point where it's like, yeah, that makes sense where you want some say in what your day looks like. And if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have that, that would be really frustrating. So that's a great reminder. Yeah. And so, um, another piece too that I'm thinking that you said I think would be so important is if you are somebody that is like I want to work in my silo, I want to do my job as a speech pathologist, and I don't want to have to coordinate and work with a lot of other team members, which is fine. I mean, that's one of those you just need to know that about yourself. This
Mm-hmm.
would be a challenging setting because you're right. You really do need to if for your sake, for the patient's sake, you have to work as a team, and there has to be a lot of communication, and not that. Well, I don't do that. That's the OT's job. Well, I don't do that. It's like you have to be willing to have that more, like you said, that interdisciplinary. We're working together, and it's not. This is my silo. You stay in yours. Nope. We all
Mm-hmm.
have to work together.
Mm-hmm. And in the same turn, it allows for a lot of education for the other disciplines. Speech pathology it's not a relatively new discipline, but I think it's often misunderstood. When I introduce myself as a speech therapist, people say, "Oh, you must love working with kids," and I can't say my R's, and I say, "Oh, I work with adults," and you see them like have to process that. But I think it happens with healthcare staff as well. I've had to do a lot of education or a lot of conversations regarding I do target cognitive skills. I don't just target swallowing because I'll have a whole referral list of people who are coughing or choking during meals, and then no referral list for the people who are having consistent falls or who wandered out of the building. And I've had nurses say, I didn't realize that that's what you do. So if you are willing to work as a team, a lot of things that may often go unnoticed get caught just in day-to-day conversation.
Yeah, and you're right. The more you work with others, the more they understand what it is you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that it really is about educating for our field and advocating. And I've worked with NICU babies forever and ever. And I was just having this conversation yesterday with somebody explaining my work with them. And I could see immediately that confused look. And I thought, oh, no, I don't expect them to talk. It's like, they were always like, well, they're like, what are you? And I always say, we work from here to here, like all
Mm-hmm.
of this in between. And so they're like, oh, that makes so much more sense. But yeah, so I'm sure people also are thinking like, oh, so these adults also can't say their R's, they're
Right,
probably like,
right.
so yeah, the more we work together and yeah, then people do see what we do. And then they more know, oh, when I see this happening, this is absolutely the
Mm-hmm.
expert that I want to bring in
Mm-hmm.
to take a look at this. So what would you say if somebody's thinking, I'm really interested in wanting to try working in a skilled nursing facility? What steps would you say they should do to even see if this is the right fit for them, or if to even prepare themselves for doing that work?
That's a good question. Um, a lot of nursing facilities do offer PRN opportunities. There's such a need right now. So if it's something that you're not sure you want to do full time or you're not quite ready to make a career switch, see if your local nursing facility has a PRN opportunity. And you can go in and get a feel and say, this is something I'm enjoying, or this isn't an environment that I feel comfortable in. Would probably be a good first step in terms of if you're truly thinking about, I don't know if I want to make an entire switch. I think that would be a good way to provide support for that nursing facility, but also get your feet wet a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I also, I know things have changed with HIPAA. I remember when I was in undergrad, I would call the local hospital and say, find the SLP and say, can I just follow you around to patient's room? Is sure. And we would just walk. I mean, they didn't know me
Mm-hmm.
from somebody else. Like, here I am. But is that something now that is frowned upon if you know someone that works there or call and said, I'm an SLP, can I shadow you for the day? Or is that not allowed now with HIPAA?
That's a good question. I know that I've had people come in and shadow me. I always talk to the patients beforehand and say, I do have someone that's interested, or I have a graduate student who's interested. Would they be able to come in and observe the session? And if the patient says it's okay, then I bring someone in. If the patient says, I'd rather not, then I don't. Um, I think the bigger concern, though facilities have relaxed a little bit, is allowing people to come in with the new COVID protocols. For a long
Yeah.
time, we weren't allowing extra personnel into the facility.
Mhm.
And we still aren't. There's a lot of telehealth happening still, um, to limit the number of care providers into rooms. So that would be another component that I would have to check, or that would have to be checked before someone could come in and shadow.
But it certainly sounds like it would be worth asking if you call and say, "Hey, I would just this is who I am. This is what
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested in. Is this even something that we could work out?" Um, yeah, the PRN. I agree. I have several friends that started in medical PRN and then just loved it, and now that's where they work. Um, I know you mentioned before the CEUs. I know there's so many, and just again, we don't have to travel and go to a 3-day workshop now. They're
Mm-hmm.
right there available online, and a lot of them are reasonably priced. Um, do you ever think, I know you learned a lot by working as a nursing assistant, and I'm not suggesting somebody go get a different degree to go do this, but would it ever be such where there's volunteer opportunities that wouldn't be a huge time commitment where somebody could volunteer at a skilled nursing facility to just even see and learn the logistics like you did?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think most nursing facilities, especially the activities department, are always looking for volunteers to come in and help do bingo, or come in and help set up for a social event. Or we've brought in people to play the guitar. Our activities departments have brought in people to bring their pets by. We've had people come in and do an exercise class, do a wheelchair level exercise class, or a sitting exercise class. So contacting a local facilities activities department or social services department. Um, I know they're always looking for volunteers to come in and help.
Yeah, that's a great way too, just to even see like it and like you went and fell in love with the population and that
Mm-hmm.
dictated where you were going to work. So that would be a great way to even see, is this a population I love? And do I feel like, wow, this really is great. I would love to do this on a regular basis. And then you're known. And then it kind of
Mm-hmm.
gets your foot in the door too, that you are known to that facility. So that may be kind of a
Mm-hmm.
nice way also to bridge that gap.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so now that was very helpful. I feel like I understand a lot more about skilled nursing facilities that I hadn't really thought about. And I think if somebody is thinking through that may be a different setting, that this would help at least kind of steer them in the direction. So, but one of the things that we're doing now is we are ending with a lightning round of questions. And so these are just fun questions. Some just
Okay,
fun, some speech related that are just, I think, is a fun way to end. So, are you ready for the
I'm
lightning round,
ready.
Erin?
Maybe.
Okay. Do you accept the challenge?
I do.
Okay, so
It's
I like
Friday,
to
so
start.
be easy on me.
I will. These are all good. You will not have to think. Well, maybe you'll have to think hard some, but not all. Okay, so the first one is a would you rather question.
Okay.
Okay, so would you rather win $25,000 or your best friend win $100,000?
My best friend win $100,000.
Okay, so I'm not supposed to dive into this. I'm reminded these are lightning questions, but of course I'm going to restrain. You're a very good friend. Okay, next one. Least favorite area of speech and language to treat.
Ooh, lightning round. Um, probably voicing. Probably voice. Just because
Okay,
that's
that's
my
fair.
area I feel the weakest in. We don't see it too
Yes.
often.
Yes. Okay, you have 4 hours of free time. What is your favorite way? What are you going to do with those 4 hours?
Or lay in the hammock and read a good book.
Mm, sounds amazing. Okay, class you loved the most in grad school.
Aphasia.
Okay. And last but not least, what is next for you professionally? I know you're in Minnesota now. Working in a skilled nursing? What's next?
I have actually made the switch. As we've been talking about, I have taken a 1 year um, job with a school system. So but I'm going to
What?
maintain, I know, I
Yes.
am going to maintain PRN to keep that medical aspect. Um, but as I've extolled on all of the pros of working in a nursing facility, there are downsides and feeling that burnout that you mentioned at the beginning of the session, especially after 2 years, 2.5 years of working with COVID, it's taken an emotional toll. So I am taking kind of a step back to refresh myself. Um, so we'll see.
Well, and that's such an important reminder to, I think, well, I don't think, I know it's an important reminder to everybody is that is where you can love something so much, but
Hmm.
know I need to just step back from it. And then when I'm ready, I can return. And that, again, is just such a great reminder that
Hmm.
that will, and you're still doing the PRN work, but you can always go back to that. But it is great that we have that ability to switch around, and the probably people that have been working in schools saying, "Oh my gosh, COVID took a toll on me. I want to go do skilled nursing or outpatient or
Absolutely.
something else." So I'm so glad that you said that because we've got to remember to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. And sometimes that means
Hmm.
stepping back from the things that we love so then we can continue to love them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is a labor of love when you work in a skilled nursing facility. These are residents you see every day. They become a part of your family. You become a part of theirs. Um, and and with that love comes a lot of loss, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, and it can be draining. And so it's
Yeah.
important to protect your own mental health so that you can better
Mhm.
provide services. Because if you're working on an empty tank, you're not going to be able to fill anybody else's up.
Yes. Such an important reminder. Everybody tuck that one away because it is, even for myself. And then I have just one last question when you like working with this population for so long, does it, do you fear aging or do you now embrace it?
A little bit of both. It's hard to
Yeah.
see. It's hard to see,
Hmm.
particularly early onset Alzheimer's happening to people so young. Um,
Yeah.
and that is a fear, but I also try and embrace every day. And I've worked with patients who are 102 and they may not be able to tell me what they had for lunch, but hearing their history and learning about the life they live just makes me appreciate the life that I'm living and all the adventures that I get to live. And one day, hopefully, when I'm 90 and my speech therapist is sitting in front of me and I'm going on and on and on about, I used to do what you do, hopefully they can look at me with the same grace that I try to look at my patients with.
Yeah, I'm sure it does give you that where you know what's coming, but also then that ability to really enjoy
Mm-hmm,
what you're able to do now
mm-hmm,
and not take it for granted as much. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Erin. This was so helpful,
absolutely.
and we'll have to have you on. And I would love to hear more as you switch from skilled nursing to schools and what that's like, because I'm sure that's got its own set of um, intimidation. But so excited for you, and thank you so much for sharing what you know. It's been so beneficial.
Thank you so much for having me on. Hopefully, someone gets a little bit of help out of this or learn something new.
I'm sure they will. So thank you.
Thank you.
And that wraps up this episode. Thank you for tuning into SLP Full Disclosure. For more information about this episode, check out the show notes on our website at medtravelers.com/SLP Full Disclosure. And don't forget to leave us a review and subscribe so you never miss a guest. Are you interested in becoming a travel SLP? Visit medtravelers.com to learn more and explore the exciting opportunities we offer at top-level facilities across the country. Also, a special thanks to Jonathan Carey for producing this episode and Aiden Dykes for the music and editing. And as always, this episode was powered by Med Travelers. See you next time.